Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of Maymania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this edition of the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast. Excited to have you along for the ride here this evening. We're going to be catching up with Mark Elliott. We're going to be catching up with Tyler Reed. Looking forward to this one front to back. Brian is joining us from home. He said that it's his birthday and he doesn't work on his birthday, so he's home with and joining us remotely. He's actually got a football meeting and got their fingers crossed that they're going to get some football in this year. So Brian, he's hanging out there. It was a big day in the NFL. We saw the Chiefs and the Buccaneers make their way into the Super Bowl. So now I got to be honest, my interest in football has now been completely extinguished. It was a much different story going into Sunday, but everything is certainly run its course for the 2020 to 2021 season, both the Packers and the Bills losing. Brian, he was pontificating at length online about his picks for the scores of the games, and I think he angered the football gods at one point. What happened there?
You know, it was strange. When the playoffs were first set, I went through and made my picks, and it ended up being pretty accurate. I said it was going to be the Packers and the Chiefs, but yesterday, for some reason at work, I just got this strange feeling like I thought Buffalo was going to win, and so I changed my official pick, and I seem to have angered the football gods. So I apologized, and well, like I told you when I told my brother and some other Bills fans, the Bills are in a great place. I think they're probably the third best team in the NFL right now. Inexperienced as far as going deep into the playoffs. That was their first championship game. It was the third in a row for Kansas City, and it's big games. I mean, it's just there's a different feeling. There's a different stress level. I've been blessed as a football coach to have worked with a Hall of Famer for Section 5 and probably eventually New York State Hall of Fame coach, and I played in been associated with a lot of championship games, and it's just something different. And the Bills learned a lot from it. And I would assume they have a great coach, a great quarterback. So I think they'll be back next year, and I think you'll probably see the AFC Championship going through Buffalo. Would be my prediction right now. Well,
that would be awesome. Alex Vasco checking in, James Logston checking in, Tanner Longest, Marcella Benjamin already hanging out in the live chat. Good to see all the folks hanging out with us here tonight. Thanks so much. Mark Elliott is hanging out with us. Mark, did you follow the football games at all this weekend?
Yeah, I watched them. And they was some pretty good games. I like watching. I'm a success fanatic, so I like to see people succeed, and I like to watch them celebrate. So I enjoyed both games.
Awesome. Well, on the topic of success, we're bridging toward the start of the 2021 Unified Point Series. Last year it was an outstanding run right down to the wire. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance to have all of the celebrations that we wanted to in terms of getting together and recognizing those championships and doing the celebration part of things and cherishing the success that those guys had. But this year, hopefully things go different. What's the season looking like for this year?
The season for this year is, it feels like complete chaos for me. It feels like starting from scratch. Before I get in too deep to that, I do want to just own the fact that, last year was definitely crazy throughout the year, and it ended crazy. And I own that. I never even came on the show to just recap. And whether that be because I was busy trying to accomplish things that I never anticipated having to accomplish and closing it out, which I believe is done now, or just a small break that I did get in there before things just had to start again. But there's so many things that I really wanted to celebrate, and I tried to celebrate on social media, but I wanted to celebrate at the banquet, and we did cancel that, right or wrong. We did cancel the banquet, but just to have the diverse group of drivers in that top 10, I believe from 4 or 5 different states, even inside the top 5, 4 different states, I believe, and to have those guys collectively earn throughout the year at point shows $100,000 collectively. Those guys were happy about doing well in the point series. I was just as happy for them just watching, who doesn't want to do well at something that they work their ass off to do well at. So watching all those guys succeed all year long was my reward. And I just want to own the fact that I wish I had come on the podcast to just celebrate that. Even with you guys, you guys were along for the journey all year long. So I definitely, before I got into 2021, I wanted to own that and just look at it as an opportunity to try to do things even better this year.
Sure. Well, I mean, we tried to juggle it in the interim as best we could with the season's conclusion, and also give you the space. I mean, what did you discover anything of consequence when you went back through and did that audit to make sure that the points were correct?
Nothing that affected the top 10. It was more of a learning experience on Excel, which by no means would I claim to be an expert at, but I do use Excel spreadsheets to help compile the data, which saves me time.
Sure.
And I use multiples. And in that process, I think I want to use the term hire loosely, because you would have to pay someone, I believe, to hire them. But I want to give a shout out. To Erica Davis, who did step in and start helping me audit late in the season, and just checks and balances, more eyes on the prize, and it was definitely a learning experience last year, and I tried to document those takeaways and just try to implement them into this year. But this year, I mentioned it feels like chaos, and so in 2019 and prior, my announcing schedule it felt like a copy and paste from year to year.
Right.
I would add some to it, but it was a copy and paste. And then we took the entire sport and just shook it up and shuffled every date up last year, it feels like. And so there's no mimicking that. There's no copy and paste this year, because all those promoters, they either want to go back to their respective dates, or they decided that they kind of like a different date and they want a new date, but now they're on top of somebody else. And
Right.
I can promise you that every promoter listening has to feel the way I feel right now. And just saying it really feels like starting from scratch.
It's an exciting time of year right now, with Redneck Rumble waiting around the corner. That is planned to move ahead, as it would have, I guess, in years prior. I don't really know the best way to say that. It's scheduled back to when it was supposed to be scheduled, back in January, and that's coming up on the 30th. So it's good to see that part of things coming back into perspective and getting a little bit more spaced out. But with that, also a lot of promoters in a lot of different places are having to adjust to at least another year of the new normal, with different restrictions on gathering and things along those lines. I did reach out to Brandon, but he's buried anyway, so we didn't end up catching up with him. But what are you finding with the promoters putting together their schedules? I mean, we got Christy King and Devin Germain up there in Canada with Impact. I talked with them a little bit over the weekend, and they're seeing a little bit of that same juggling with maybe one more year of the weird, awkward scheduling before we can get back to having all the dates where they were, quote unquote, supposed to be, where we're used to them being.
Yeah, you nailed it. And I think the key variable and the key problem child, we'll call it the problem child, is the uncertainty with the restrictions around fairs, because, you know, most promoters, if they have a big show, they have some fairs, and with the uncertainty around the fairs, you know, that kind of drives some of the dates, especially in mid to late year, once we start heading into the fall. And I don't expect people to really understand the reality of what we're going to see for fairs, probably for a couple to few months, and that is that really puts a bind on one, those promoters, and two, me, because I do have, you know, it's about a 50-50. I do have quite a bit of fairs, so you know, last year my logic and concept was really, again, it was a little bit of copy and paste, not to repeat that, but my logic seemed more structured last year, and we scheduled, I believe, 30 shows, and we had 24. So my logic this year, with the uncertainty that we can already see in January, is start throwing it at the wall. Throw it at the wall and see what sticks, whether I'm right or wrong for thinking like that. It's a full schedule already. I don't want to stop now. Just to be clear, my planned cutoff is this weekend on January 30th, and I've already got 3 months that are closed out, and I've got 4 to 5 months that there's only one weekend available in, and so we're already past how many shows we scheduled last year, and so my hope is if we suffer another, what we would call a COVID, like year of the COVID part 2, that, you know, maybe we'll get closer to that 30 number, and really kind of just give drivers more opportunities.
Did we lose you?
Hello?
Hey,
can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay.
Just trying to give drivers more opportunities. I mean, to get 24 out of 30 races in, it's not too bad when you figure how much territory you were covering and how many challenges. I mean, eventually in the middle of the season, I think you ended up adding some dates back that were initially told no just because other opportunities had been taken off the calendar, right?
Yeah, so, you know, closing out the opportunity for promoters this Saturday on January 30th, you know, I don't know if I'm right or wrong for that, but that's what we did last year, and I really try hard to, one, keep it simple, but two, not change a whole lot, because I feel like it was brand new last year, and I feel like if I change too much, then, you know, all the ground that we made with drivers last year, understanding what we were doing, we would just shake that back up, and then they would be lost and not really know how the process works. So we did add some shows mid-year last year, you know, and I don't regret that. I'm really trying to pack those shows on in the beginning, and there's two things that we changed in the guidelines, and it really is to support the promoters. The one thing that I'm most confident about is last year we had a few promoters that paid for a spot, but they were unable to get the show in because I did make a cutoff last year. Now, when I made that cutoff, that was mid-year, so I would call that an audible. And at the time, it seemed like the right thing to do for myself and the drivers. After I did it, and after I watched a couple promoters that actually paid for a show, and they didn't get to they actually had their show, but I didn't score points at it, I stuck to my word, and that's definitely one thing that I did, but I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel good for those promoters, so I've changed that. If a promoter enters their show, they pay that $250 entry fee, they're accountable to that $250. That's a bronze sponsorship to the point series. But if they have to cancel or postpone that show, as long as they do it before the first weekend of December, which would be our closer, that'd be our last show to close out the year. I don't care when they do it, and I hope that lets them know that I do care about their investment, and I think it protects their investment with just the uncertainty for them of, if I enter this show, am I even going to get to have it?
So when does the season start? I see that there's still some logistics and stuff that are being worked out. When does the season formally begin?
Sturgis, this Saturday.
So it's going to kick off this weekend. It's going to go from January 30th all the way to December, essentially the first weekend of December.
5th, yeah. 5th is typically White Pine, that Young and Reckless
Sean McCollum's show. Yep.
And we didn't get to have that show last year, so we didn't even get to have the closer, but that's the initial plan, and, you have to close it there in order to even be able to close out 2020 and get that money out of my bank account before I got to pay taxes on it.
How much did you end up giving out this year?
With I believe 61 sponsors, and all the people, anybody that bought a shirt helped make up that 6,800, I believe, or 6,900 of the Derby Tee sponsor. Everybody that wore a shirt all year long, they were a sponsor. But then plus the 60-plus sponsors that we flew on the banner, we paid out, I think it was $27,900 or vice versa, $28,000. It was around $28,000.
Wow.
We paid out every dollar that was donated.
That's awesome. And is there an expectation that there's going to be, like, let me back that up. Are you having, due to the attention that this has gotten and the way that it worked in terms of generating car counts for places, generating attention for places that might have been a little bit further off the beaten path, are you having more more promoters trying to get on board with this? Is it an expectation that the schedule will be about the same number of events, or is there going to be more, and some of them you're just not physically going to be able to be at?
Yeah, yes to everything you asked. Yes, I've got some new promoters. There's more that want in. There's some that were in that want more. And it's really going to come down to how much I can actually do, and when my time across that bridge, whether we start looking, I don't want to say too much, but at that point, just looking from the outside in, at that point, you either have to add more resources so you can do more, or you have to cut it off or scale back. And
sure.
And I have not looked in that far, but yes, we already have promoters in this year that I'm real excited about it. I've already had to make some difficult decisions, and honestly, that is, to be vulnerable, that's one of my weaknesses. I score off the charts in avoiding conflict, and when you have to tell somebody no, that you really like to tell yes, regardless if it's because you like them or you just want to help them, whatever the case may be. There's definitely been some difficult decisions already, and I really have to work overtime because that's not one of my strengths, to just strip the emotion out of it and just try to look at the business decision.
Yep. So you got to decide without emotion. It's a tough thing to do. Businesses don't have feelings.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Easier said than done, but yes, 100% agree.
We've lived it. I understand completely.
It's not about friendship. It's about business.
Right. Brian, it's starting to sound more and more like an IMCA modified schedule.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it was amazing to see the support that this gained last year, and it gained so quickly. I can't imagine if, which things are starting to look that way, if things open up and are back to normal or close to normal, Mark is going to be running all over the east parts of the state. So, it's great to see so many people were so supportive last year, and to see that it's going to continue growing. It's weird, you and I, a while ago had talked about what it'd be like to have some sort of points deal, and to see it come to fruition, it's pretty cool.
It is, and the way that everybody embraced it was right. I was really glad that it came down to a showdown with a couple guys that sort of broke away, and it was a 2-horse race. And it's also really good to hear that there's not only promoters looking for more that were part of it last year, but new promoters starting to get in. I mean, Mark and I, at one point last year, one of our conversations, we said, what's going to happen next year when a bunch of people see how this worked and try to come on board. And Mark, you're going to have to quit your full-time job just so that you can run around and announce derbies.
That has came up more than once. That is no part of any plan A for me. Jokes aside, reality is it was a full-time job last year. I worked more hours at the Point Series than I did at my career, and that's 100% fact.
Paul Neely wants Florida to be in the mix of rules other than stock shows. One of the guys in the live chat. Is that something that you've seen coming on the radar? I know there was a show in Daytona that was planned this year that ended up getting knocked off the schedule due to the COVID restrictions, and hopefully that comes back around next year. But Paul Neely wants more than just stock rules down in Florida. Is that something that you've come across?
So I didn't see the full lineup that Jason Koch and Koch Promotions had for Daytona. But I believe he had some heavy build in there, and so I 1,000% have confidence that he is going to bring that dream into fruition, to have the Daytona Beach right there. It's easy to say everything happens for a reason. It's not easy to live it in real time, and I can only imagine that was a horrible experience for them to have to cancel their first annual derby down there. But just to answer his question, I do believe that is going to be a good opportunity to bring many multiple classes and builds, heavy and light, to Florida once that takes place.
The Florida world is sort of like, I would want to say maybe Florida was kind of like what New York was 2 years ago. As the sport evolved nationally and more heavier influence came to the coast, you saw New York sort of pick things up, and I think Florida's in that same spot. And let's face it, if Jason's involved with putting that together, there's going to be a heavy build class.
Yeah, that's why I said 1,000%. That's how confident I am in that.
TJ McCulloch is in the live chat. He says he thinks that we're really going to see fans seek out these events because now there's more to it than just a typical show. It has drama, excitement, triumph, and failure. Alex Sager checking in. Alex Sager shared a picture of his dog trying as best he could to catch a rubber donut flying through the air, and the poor dog failed miserably, but it was a riot to watch. So thanks for that. TJ, more to TJ's point, it not being a typical show, which that falls right in line with what TJ's trying to do with Dead Man anyway. TJ doesn't want a typical show, and he throws curveballs at the drivers all weekend long. And with the No Mercy show that's coming up in April, it's a Derby production. It's not just a promotership. So this is all trending right in the vein of where TJ wants the sport to be headed anyhow.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It's some of the ideas he had were pretty neat. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, in his next show. I think they should have some sort of steel cage match, or steel cage heat or something like that. But what do I know?
That Royal Rumble idea that they had, with different iterations that have happened, previous and subsequent to it, gained a lot of momentum. And just like when that Relic class showed up, how that started to add another element Demolition Derby and the way things that can be changed and tweaked to make it more of a show. And again, finding an old use for a new type of car. Years and years ago, it was called the Gold Iron class. That had to be 1959 and older. And now we've got another way to run a new type of car. This I think is going to become more and more prevalent around the country with the way that Royal Rumble gained so much attention that he had in the fall.
Yeah, it'd be cool. Can you imagine sitting there and, I mean, what if it's somebody like, Richie Predmore or Jeremy Gully, and they get, number 18 or 19 out of a 20-car heat, and they're sitting there and everybody else is at the other end of that track like 300 foot away. Can you imagine the hit they could lay in on something like that?
There's a short list of drivers that I would want to see draw number 18 or 19 like that, and Richie Predmore's on it.
Yeah, definitely. I'd put Gully right there, too. He got pretty famous with the beam from Waterloo when he was attempting to drive through the Eamon's van and did a pretty good job of it. If the wall had been on the other side, they would have been easy to see how that turned out. But, yeah, there's a couple of guys I'd like to see that would come out of there deep or, hard and deep from a late draw.
It was a ton of fun. That No Mercy show that's got a date, registration's open. That's got the green light to carry on and move forward, which is more good news. It's another step towards getting back to what we thought 2020 was going to be when we put the curtain down on 2019. So little by little, starting to inch back towards what we hoped things would be, and certainly with the way that the point series is coming together. How many dates are on the calendar right now for you in 2021? Last year you had 30 and got 24 in.
Somewhere between 35 and 40. I don't know.
That's a pretty good season. That's a pretty good year. I'm intrigued by the fact that
I tried.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I tried last year to, I got to look out for myself at my time, and I got to look out for the drivers, and I put a lot of pressure on that last year. Mm-hmm. And, back to my motto this year of just throwing it at the wall and see what sticks. If I've got to go to 3 different states in 3 consecutive days on a Thursday, Friday, and a Saturday, and a driver that really is ambitious about scoring points, if he's crazy enough to follow me, then maybe somebody like that is deserving to win it. But at the end of the day, you got to score points. And I think I could have did a better job last year of really communicating how simple it is. And by that, I don't mean simple in skill, just it's that simple. You score points, that's it. And, we're not measuring who the best demolition derbier is in the world. We're measuring who the winningest driver is in their class. And, one thing we didn't see last year is anybody going to a different class to, mix it up or like, I'm not going to let this person score points or I'm going to try like hell not to. Who knows? We may see some of that. I don't even know if it's a good idea. I don't know if that creates drama. I look forward to seeing what this year brings, if I could say that the simplest way.
Sure. Is the full schedule going to be revealed this weekend in Sturgis?
That's my plan, Chris. Again, when I say that's my plan, I have got some pushback from people. I've got some pushback from promoters that they're just not going to have their dates by then. Mm-hmm. I'm contemplating, do I push back a deadline? I really feel like it's important, one, to the drivers to see that schedule, but even more so for me, it's important to me to try to just do things the same and not so much reactive to the pandemic or the year, even though sometimes I feel like we had no choice but to do that. I really would like to put that schedule out and roll with it. And again, if a promoter, if they give me that date for their entry and they have to cancel that show, they're still good for either that show or another show. They've got that entry, no different than a driver has an entry to run a show.
I think that the sooner you can get that information out, the better. To know that at least like Brian can relate to this. Empire Super Sprints would always put a schedule out, and they would put it out like maybe 2 months to 3 months ahead of when the first date was, and it always had the big disclaimer right at the top: we are still working on dates. So I think it would be better to have the information out there so people can at least plan around that. And then if they find out there's one closer to home and they elect not to travel just so they can go closer to home, it supports the home show versus them going out of town anyway. And they're still going to have the opportunity to score points. You had guys that you didn't expect to follow the whole thing jump on board and have career years. I mean, John Shipley's year and Don Santel's year are I mean, it's hard to believe that they happened in parallel. They happened in unison, the way that those years played out. So just to get that information out there so that you can say, hey, look, our next show is supposed to be, we won't have another show for another 3 weeks at minimum. And that way people can look into February and look into March and start planning out what their season's going to be. Because you're right. You might have more jump up. You might have more get added. You might have more come on board and the schedule might change. But it's going to be I think it's going to be a whole lot easier to be proactive and get information out there for the drivers that want to follow and want to commit than it is to try and say, well, I know you planned this vacation, but we couldn't put this out there, so we didn't put any of the schedule out until we could put the whole thing together and give it to you at one time.
That's good feedback. I couldn't agree more that they want to know. They're asking me right now. They're asking me. They want to know so they can plan those trips, or they can put that plan together. I've tried to stress to people that are frustrated that they couldn't get into Sturgis or any other show that is already filled up like shows are doing.
Right.
I've tried to stress to them. Don't put too much of your energy towards that. If you're serious about it, put your energy towards something productive, because neither Shipley or Santel, they barely ran half the shows,
right,
or just over half the shows. And so I'm not knocking a guy for running all of them, but what I will say is it don't matter how you run, it matters how many you score at.
Yep. Quality versus quantity.
Very true.
Yep.
So a lot of chatter going on in the live chat here. TJ McCulloch is challenging Mark to a steel cage fight, and Dustin Price wants TJ to do a tag team derby. That would be interesting to see how that would work. 2-man team show, let people tag in and out. That would be cool. Alex Vasco, he's got some big plans. It's going to be hard to keep up with Mark all through the point season. I'm going to try to. It's going to be tough to do, but he's going to try to. And hopefully TJ considers this type of stuff for Buried Alive too. So, I mean, I know there's no schedule, and I know you're not going to be able to wave a magic wand and tell everybody all that information, but I hope that the rollout goes as well as possible for you this weekend. I know there's a bunch of people that are just dying to get to Sturgis. Hopefully everybody runs well, everybody stays safe. If you get the chance to get out there and do it, of course. Derby D is going to be carrying that live video there. George Highnote, he's got the a sheriff-themed raffle car. The decals of that are coming together. He shared that last night. It was a really wild-looking car. Mark has pictures of it on the ME527 announcing page. Is there a timeline for the website to get updated?
I'm working with Shannon, our website manager, on that now. Again, really right now is what could we have done better than last year? Taking some driver feedback and just trying to make it as easy for a driver to connect with a promoter. So one thing that I try not to do is put promoters' flyers or their show lineup on our website, because those suckers change them so much, and that's their business. But I want to make it easy for them to connect, because a guy from Illinois may not know this guy from Indiana. He may not even know what his company's called.
Sure.
I just want it to be a click and click for them to find their Facebook page, find their website, and connect that relationship. And, that's another one of my I really enjoy the relationships of the sport, and I've seen so many relationships evolved or created or all of the above last year, whether it be promoter, driver, promoter, is just mind-blowing.
Well, this weekend, it all comes to life again. We're certainly looking forward to the start of that one. Just to give everybody a quick update on where things are at. Here we go. You can jump online and find out more information on it there, 527unifiedseries.com. The 2021 season starts this weekend with Redneck Rumble in Sturgis, Kentucky, January the 30th. Last year, the point standings concluded with John Shipley taking the win over Don Santel, Jeremy Riley, Matt Wingrove, Travis Pennick, and Jesse Bates rounding out your top six. Nick King, J.D. King, William Close, three-way tie for seventh. Rick Furster, Jack Jernovich, and Richard Davis, three-way tie for ninth. And then a three-way tie for 10th with Preston Henshaw, Mason Stacy, and Brendan Wisman all coming through there. What, at this point, is event number 2 going to be, if we can look past Sturgis for a moment?
So I don't have anything for February, to just be completely transparent. And I only have one for March, and that's the Bluegrass Bash for the NDDA.
Okay.
I'm not even going to speak to that. That's on them. Unfortunately, that's an indoor show, and with COVID restrictions, I can only imagine the pressure that they're feeling right now. So one thing that has given me a breath of hope is once we kick this off, then I'm going to have a little bit of time until April to just get things in line.
Cool. Well, we look forward to updates, and I love a good conversation about statistics and be able to chase those points all season long. That was a ton of fun for me watching that as that developed, and what a story it was, the battle between John Shipley and Don Santel, and like you said, it got to a point where maybe there were some friends potentially coming out and trying to chase things down and making sure this guy didn't score and that guy didn't score, and some people picking up points at this show while other people elected to go this way and score points that way. It certainly got dramatic there, and coming away with a 6-point edge, John Shipley over Don Santel. Hopefully it's just as close when we get done with the 35-plus dates that you get on the schedule for 2021 this year.
Absolutely. I want to say 2 things before I go. 3. 1, always thank you guys for your time, and thank you for what you do. I want to say happy birthday to Brian, and I want to share that Derby Tees, for anybody that doesn't know, they were a quadruple platinum plus sponsor last year. They donated close to $7,000 to the purse, and the way that they did that, we had a T-shirt, hoodie, just a merchandise campaign, and that campaign generates a percentage from every shirt bought straight to the purse. Every dollar of that goes to the drivers, just like the entire purse. And last year, again, I shared last year that we had a goal of 1,000, and Mark laughed, and he said 200 was probably more likely, and we did between 700 and 800. I believe it was 730 something. I would love to do 1,000. I don't know, who knows, but I will say that launched today. Derby Tees did put that up, and right before you called, I did share that to my page. Okay. I just ask everybody, even if you can't buy a shirt and become a sponsor yourself and put money right in the purse, any share of that post just to get that word out there. I'm not 100% sure how long the campaign is going to be. It's probably going to be from 1 to 3 weeks. I'll have to work that out with them. But the 2021 Unified Point Series shirts with a new message, our new message for this year is to walk the walk. That's what it says on the back of the shirt, and that's what I'm feeling. So,
Well, I sure do appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to many, many more appearances through the course of 2021. Mark, keep us posted how things go. And right now the plan is we're going to be talking to you next week with a recap of event number 1 for the 2021 Unified Point Series kickoff from Redneck Rumble in Sturgis, Kentucky.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brian. You guys have a good day.
Oh, as
Thanks,
always,
Mark.
man. Appreciate you coming
Thanks for
on.
the wishes.
We'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
There goes Mark Elliott. A couple thoughts from Mark as he gets ready for a busy year. Once again, give you the rundown on that stuff. The next event is going to be NDDA's Bluegrass Bash, if it happens. That's scheduled out in March. Event number 1, January the 30th, Wicked Derby's Redneck Rumble in Sturgis, Kentucky. We made reference to it. Here's some more of the details on that one. No Mercy coming up April 23rd and 24th, 2021, with Dead Man Derby, deadmanderby.com for information online. TJ McCulloch, James Logston, that is awesome. We appreciate you coming on to support that. James Logston works with the Alliance Motorsports server, doing a lot of online derbies, and he is interested in jumping on board to offer some support and commit some sponsorship of some sort to the Unified Point Series. So that's really cool. Appreciate that, James. Where were we? Oh, TJ McCulloch and No Mercy, April 23rd and 24th. Friday is the three-man compact team heats, 80s Pro Stock heats, and the half-ton trucks and SUVs running on Friday. Saturday is a stacked afternoon. On April the 24th, last chance events on the line, along with the Youth Compacts, which is paying $800 to win, Imperials $2,000 to win, minivan, mini truck, and mini SUV, $1,200 to win. Full-size Team 1 and Done, Dead Man Compact, 70s and 80s Pro Stock Division, $8,000 to win, 3-man Compact Team Derby. It is stacked. Full-size Mercenaries as well, online for additional details, deadmanderby.com. Our friends up in the North Country, Christy King, Christy Germain, she had some conversations with Tim Clark at Smash It here this weekend. We traded some text messages with Tim Jr., so he's getting ready to jump back into the full swing of things. Smash It Demolition Derbies, extending their thanks again for all the support through the course of 2020 and really, really amping things up for 2021. It was a challenging year, and they couldn't do it without the staff, the fairs, fair boards, the fans, partners, and everybody that helped make that one happen year after year. Thank you so much for that. We have one more somewhere. There it is. 2021 Hardcore Tour. May the 15th is the start for the Hardcore Tour. I imagine most of these events are going to be part of the Unified Point Series. They were last year. May Meltdown is in Stoneboro, Pennsylvania. June the 12th is Destruction on the Knob in Markleysburg, PA. June the 26th is Mayhem on the Mountain, Farmington, Pennsylvania. And then they run into the rest of their schedule. Busy month of July, another busy month of August, a busy month of September, which all leads us up to the Final Confrontation, September 24th and 26th, $10,000 to win Final Confrontation event in Dunbar, Pennsylvania. That is going to crown the 2021 Hardcore Championships. That is also going to feature a Jeffy's Fab Farm $3,000 Mad Dog Award. We're going to be talking with them here as the weeks click off, and I tell you, we're going to be in the thick of that one in no time. The Hellraiser Awards that they've got planned out are second to none. They're going to be awarding points and things like that. It's going to be a fun tour to follow along. Like I said, I'm all about the stats. We got a couple different opportunities to follow along with the win count and the point totals with the Unified Series and the Hardcore Tour. And then Jeffy's Fab Farm, we talked about the Camry in a box and some of the other projects that they've got going. He's recognized as an industry leader in all manner of fabrication needs. Jeffy's Fab Farm, they're a national go-to for a number of demolition derby needs. They specialize in the LSs. They cut their teeth in derby cred with all of their header offerings. They released that solid 4-cylinder Camry engine mount last year, and it just springboarded from there. They've got online offerings. You name it, it's there. Bumper-to-bumper selection, fuel and air parts, suspension, transmission items, steering components, pedal shifter, switches, and gauges. If you need it, you can find it on the farm, jeffysfabfarm.com. Tanner Long is excited to head to Pennsylvania for the first time in June. It'll be fun. That's cool. So Tanner's going to be in Pennsylvania. That'll be a good time. Just trying to keep up with everything that's happening. Chat's busy tonight. Smith Metalworks, smithmetalworks.info, another big partner on the Hardcore Tour, all-purpose fabrication shop that has taken the Northeast by storm. Smith Metalworks features more than 40 years of fine metalworking experience. The hallmark of the product line is that pointed and the flat front bumpers replicating popular factory releases. You can't overlook the Superstock bumpers. They can be stuffed, run hollow, you name it. They hold up great. They also offer Crown Vic door skins, weld-in centers, distributor clamps. They have GM floor liners if you need those. In-person locations for pickup, Mercer, Uniontown, Bethlehem, PA, or you can order it and they will ship it right to your door. Brian himself, you've got the super stock bumper, and now, Brian, if you can believe it, when you play online, when you finally get to a point where you can play online again, you can put a Smith Metalworks bumper on your online Derby car bumper.
That's awesome. Hopefully it runs a little longer for me than. Hopefully I have a little better luck than the first time I tried running one. Didn't have such good luck down there. But, yeah, it's cool to see all the stuff they're coming up with in that game. Like I've been saying, hopefully, I'll be able to get on there and do some running soon. But it just doesn't happen.
So we got Tyler Reed joining us here in a moment. Sorry, Brian, got a little quiet on you.
You're fine.
Trying to make sure that I can get you into this mess along with Tyler. And looks like we got everybody there. So I'm back. Scott Kiefer says, let's hope that COVID is under control and the shows will go on. It certainly seems like we got some plans and some contingency plans to get these shows in one way or the other. So that's some good news. Tyler Reed joining us on the line. Tyler, a skilled Derby driver in his own right. We were hoping maybe that he would be able to talk his dad into coming on with us too, but doesn't look like that was able to come to pass. But nonetheless, Tyler, joining us here, man. Congratulations on getting the time off so that you could join us tonight. I'm glad that worked out. And welcome to the show. How are you? Oh, there we go. That might be a little bit better. Try that. Tyler, man, are you there now?
Yeah. Man.
There we go. Helps out a lot when you hit the speaker button. That way we can hear what Tyler has to say. So, Tyler, man, we talked a little bit about the Unified Point Series. We talked a little bit about some of the RDP project. Man, tell me about where you're at in Demolition Derby and what 2021 is going to look like for you.
Well, we really don't know yet. Everything here locally kind of got canceled last year. Kind of like what Mark was saying, anything associated with any kind of fairs around home was pretty much just canceled. We had a few derbies that were not associated with fairs that we were able to run. Mm-hmm. We got a couple derbies in before March last year that, before COVID was really a big thing, and last year was supposed to be a pretty big year for us, but everything just kind of got shut down. It came to a screeching halt.
How many generations of drivers do you have in your family at this point?
So my dad, myself, and my brother, we all run.
And how did your dad get into it? I trust that you got into it just following your father's footsteps.
Yeah, pretty much. It was, when you've been around it that long, that was pretty much the only choice, there was never a doubt in, I think, anybody's minds about me doing it. As far as him goes, him and a couple buddies right out of high school just thought it'd be something fun to do, and he's pretty much the only one that stuck with it, and it's pretty much all history from there.
Does your dad go back in time and bench race and talk about all the great cars that they scrapped because it needed spark plugs or something crazy like that?
Well, the biggest thing, they used to buy, Chevy sedans and just pull the clips off of them, for wagons. You didn't want to run sedans back then.
Right.
They didn't want to run any Buick or Olds or Pontiac cars, until the mid to late 90s. Everything was Chevy.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't. That's what you ran.
How crazy is that? For all the Chevy guys out there, can you imagine how many Impalas just went to the scrapyard with no clip, frame straight, no rust, and we just put the clip on the wagon and keep running it? That's got to give some guys some heartburn out there.
Well, absolutely. And that's like, him and a couple buddies, they used to run a lot of shocker Mopars. Well, let's pull a pointy off and throw it in the scrap pile, put a flat bumper on it. We don't want to run that thing. Too much leverage.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. And now they're between, $200 and $800 a piece. That's insane.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I was leafing through some of the pictures that you had on your Facebook page and going back into the 20 teens. It looked like you had some Malibus.
Yeah, I ran, I guess, 2 sedans and a wagon. That was right when I first started derbying. I started in 2009. I think I ran 2010, I ran the wagon, and then I ran the green sedan, and then I ran a four-door sedan.
Chuck Chapman ran a bunch of those up here. There's a guy that's up here, and another couple guys that are up in the Northeast that have done some really serious damage with those Malibus. Steve Bucknam Sr., Steve Bucknam Jr. Those guys swore by them. I think Steve Jr. told me one time the number of cars of Malibu, specifically that body type of Malibu, that they had wrecked in their time, and I think he said it was upwards of 25. I can't say definitively, but I mean it's like if you run a car that many times, you're bound to figure out a way to make it a winner, you know?
Well, yeah, and I've ran a lot more metric GMs than anything, my buddy Chris and I, we added it up one time. I don't know, we've ran 50-plus metrics between the two of us.
That's a lot of cars.
I know, right?
Pretty much everything I've ran, I've ran, I don't know, like I said, I started in 2009. I think I've ran just north of 40 derbies. Pretty much everything I ever ran other than, those 3 Malibus, and I've ran 3 Fords and 1 full-size old iron car. Everything else other than that was metric GMs, I mean, my dad bought me my very first derby car, and he said, I'll buy you your first one. Anything after this, it's on you. I'll help you when I can. And back then, metric GMs were cheap. Sure. I mean, nobody wanted to run them. It was Fords around home, and I was buying them, and I was having decent luck out of them. I never really had too many complaints, and I just kept running them. It's like, well, why change if it's not, it's not posing any problems? Why change?
Yeah, the noses on the metrics have always been, pretty decent. It was just, nobody really, in our area especially, nobody took the time to figure out the back ends. But I mean, I see, from traveling a little bit and, just seeing different things guys are doing, of course on social media, they got the back ends, figured out pretty decent. And they're a good, solid, viable car. I mean, they're right there at the end. So, it's one of those things where, Chris and I have talked a bunch is, there's not always going to be all the, Impala wagons or all the shockers that nobody runs anymore. But, you're going to have to find something and you're going to have to make it a good car if you want to compete. And that's, that's what people are doing. I mean, in, the last, 5-6 years, we've seen almost a boom of metrics. I would feel like, people are running them a lot more. And, it's good to see. I mean, I personally, I'm not a fan of the Crown Vic because they all look the same and they're all built the same. It doesn't do it for me. I mean, I grew up in the day where there was, 8, 10, 12, 15 different types of cars in heat. So it's good to see guys bringing, something different out to beat on the Fords. It's, it's fun to see. It's it doesn't make it quite as much of a cookie cutter derby when they're out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just simplicity is the easiest way to build one of those cars, and that's you get the most beneficial results by keeping it simple. I see a lot of guys trying different things, and that's fine to try different things, but I've always had the best luck just keeping it simple. I mean, I always just tried to make them roll in the back and use the front. That's just what I've always done.
Yep.
One of the pictures that I saw going back through there, it looked like it was a body style a lot like, I can't remember what the platform was, and I apologize, like a Buick Grand National or a Monte Carlo, like what the street stock guys around here like to race. Was I seeing that body wrong?
Do you remember what color it was?
It was black, of course.
Well, I ran a fair share of two-door metric.
Oh, okay.
I ran a black Buick. That's probably the one you're talking about. Or it could have been, I ran a black Caprice too, so that could have been it too.
Was it just because I don't know, and we're bridging into stuff that I just don't know? Is the Caprice, the two-door Caprice, Is that on the same platform as like what the Monte Carlo or the Cutlass or the Grand Prix was, or was that a different?
No, the smaller cars would be considered a G body,
G-body.
and then the Caprices are considered a B body.
Gotcha. Well, I learned something today, and I'm very happy to see that those cars are getting more traction. It seems like you still want the stuff from the late '70s. Or the stuff that was in the early '90s. That 1980s, no matter what brand it is, seems like it's no man's land except for Ford.
Well, and that's, I've ran, everybody there for a while wanted, if they wanted to run a metric, it was 77 to 79. And I've ran my fair share of 77 to 79. And, there may be a little difference if you get a 10 of 77 or 10 of 76, making it a 77. But, we ran a lot of 78 and 9s. We really just didn't think we're any better than any 80s car.
Yeah.
I see people giving more money for 77 to 79s. I don't buy into it much. My buddy Chris and I have measured, cars sitting beside each other to all aspects that we could. There used to be a myth about diesel frames. Everybody, diesel metric's got a thicker frame. Well, that's not true at all. We've had them all beside each other.
Now, where are you in Missouri itself? We've got some friends down in Missouri, and one of the bigger derbies that we heard about before the show got going was the Bud Blowout, and I think Candace has that now.
Yeah, so that's about 2 hours north of us.
Okay.
We're an hour southwest of St. Louis. We're right on the main drag, Interstate 44. We're right on the main drag.
So when your dad was derbying, the sport had already begun advancing out there, and you got into it. So you're a little bit ahead of the curve of sort of the rest of us. We always talked about how the center of the country derby advanced more quickly than it did, and it sort of trickled out. Do you, in the summertime, run into the folks like Eddie Chick, Rob Ewer, Teddy Papadopoulos, and all those other standout names that we've all heard about in Missouri?
See, what's funny about that is, we really don't run against those guys much at all. Mm-hmm. We have ran some of the same shows, that they have. We try to stay more towards the soccer stuff. Mm-hmm. We don't get into the cradles and the limited weld, stuff. We stay on the soccer side of things. We used to have this general rule of thumb, Interstate 70 runs right across Missouri, runs right into Kansas City. Dad always had this, made of that he wasn't going north of 70, because you went north of 70, you were the out-of-towner, you were the first one out. And that's just kind of something we've always stuck to, even once I started derbying. We just don't. Highway 70 is only 35 minutes for us, Well, we could run derbies up there, but it just, it's an out-of-town thing, That's just like a lot of them guys don't come down here by us. Mm-hmm. We just kind of don't bother each other,
right. Regionality, it's a thing. I mean, Brian, how many times have you gone and run someplace like Batavia?
With a race car, twice. With a derby car, never.
Right, and it's 35 to 45 minutes from home, right?
Batavia? Oh, it's longer than that. Batavia's like an hour ride for us.
Oh, okay. There's a little
well,
bit
back in the day, we used to travel. My first win came at Burton. I got a win at Utica Rome. Guys have went and run Fulton. It used to be fun, to travel a little bit, but things were weird then too, because the tracks rules were strange, and they didn't really have much of an inspection crew, right. Per se. I guess Utica Rome had the Kings inspect a couple times. I don't really remember, but a lot of times it'd just be, racing guys that would do the inspection. So, with all respect to the racing guys, they didn't have a clue what they were looking at on Derby cars. So that kind of made it rough. But, I wish that, I was younger now, and I'd like to do some more traveling, but it's really not in the cards as much now.
Sure.
There's a couple of places I'd like to get to and run before before I call it quits, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I touched on before when I went to Jeremy's Gully show there last year. The only one I knew in my heat was Bucknam, Chuck. So, I mean, that was neat. I didn't have to worry about, hey, I can't hit that guy or this guy or whatever. It just, not that I was out there a long time, but, it's always neat to go out and travel, as long as you, as long as you feel like you're going to get a fair shake. So, but I mean,
But you hit on something. I mean, think about what you just listed off. They're all racetracks: Fulton, Utica Rome, Brewerton. It wasn't like going to the county fairs. You just don't see that.
But I did run the county fairs. Like at one point, and I think you and I have talked about this off air. When you and I got into derbies, I mean, obviously mine was a little before yours because I'm old. But I mean,
older today.
Yeah, older today. The demolition derby universe was Seneca County, and then Glenn Donnelly started the Cuga County Fair. Well, holy cow! Then there was a Cuga County Fair demo, and then somehow I don't know. I guess it didn't really occur to me that Ontario County Fair had a demo until I was older and probably closer to drive. And then I started going, drive on the road. And I went, man, they got one too. So, the fact that we had, our own county fair and then, two more within, 30, 35 minutes. But I mean, there was Yates County, which is half hour from us. And the first time I think I went to that was right before the Kuka Clash. I think I might have went once before that to watch a show there, but it just wasn't, we didn't know about it as much. Right. But yet, it's weird how it happened because, I mean, we've talked when Mark and Marcella were on, and Harold and Betty used to tour. I mean, they went all over central New York. They did. And same with Dougie and Danny Snyder back in the day. They toured. So, I guess traveling has been part of the show, but I don't know, for some reason it didn't hit me until later. Once we went from enemy to friend of me, or then good friends with Mark and Brett, then we started going to Whitney Point. We'd go to, Chemung, or we'd go down to Oligo and watch, but and I never ran. Well, I did run at Whitney Point once, but that was for the Goose show. But, it's been there. We just, for some reason, we didn't seem to do it a lot.
Right. Live chat, Tommy Woodbury, he's talking about he's got his local show, but everything else is an hour and a half away. And he points out that Tyler runs bumpers upside down, and that used to be something that was common up here. Do you still do the upside down bumper thing?
Well, it really kind of started as I wouldn't say a joke. I was running a lot of Monte Carlo bumpers on metrics, and
right.
I just kind of realized that it was changing the leverage quite a bit of how the car was bending. I was getting metrics to push back in the front before they'd ever come up, and I don't know, I just stuck with it. This past year, actually, I ruined my last good loaded Monte Carlo bumper, so this past year I tried some different things. I still swear by it, but I don't have one sitting here. I haven't pursued buying another one to do it again, but yeah, I still stick to that. And my buddies that run a lot of metrics, they do it as well now. They all thought I was kind of crazy at first when I started doing it, and I'm like, man, I'm telling you, it's making these cars better in the front. And nobody ever really believed me. And then my buddy Chris tried it once, and he's never looked back.
That's awesome.
Chris, you remember Nicky Chester used to run a lot of bumpers upside down?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And I never, and it was funny. I was watching a derby on YouTube, and a bunch of guys on there had them upside down. That's one thing I never tried. I don't know why, but I just never did it. It was always neat, something different to try. But that's part of the game, you know. It's part of the trial and error.
Do you remember Paul Stevens when he showed up at Black Rock with 2 bumpers?
Yeah, yeah. He had some interesting ideas.
Yeah, it was cool.
Well, like I said, the first 2 Monte Carlo bumpers, because I was always too cheap to buy a 74 or 5, so the first couple I ran were 6s and 7s, and I ruined them in one derby. You know, they fish mouth and roll down, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna flip them upside down. You know, actually, a guy from Wisconsin said, why don't you try flipping, you know, one of those over one time and see what it does? And I flipped it over, and I ran that same bumper and won car 3 or 4 derbies that year, and I'm like,
wow.
All right, you know, I might try this again. I just kept doing it. I just stuck with it, you know, and I never had any problems out of it.
So on top of running around Missouri, is there any plans to venture out to some of the? I mean, there's stock rules that are creeping into some of these bigger shows. So are you gonna try and get into any of the bigger events that are being held in 2020? At least plan to.
Well, you know, like last year, we went to Oklahoma and ran last January down at Claremore, Oklahoma, and then we ran out at Capital City Carnage last March. You know, and that's kind of what I was getting at earlier. You know, last year was really going to be a year where we branched out. You know, we're getting so tired. No offense to any of the locals that are listening, but we're just getting so tired of running against all the same people. You know, we have a lot of friends around home, and it just makes it difficult when we go to a derby. You know, we ran a derby last fall. There was, 28 cars there, and 13 of us are friends. You know, everybody. It was down to us 13 cars in less than 10 minutes. Everybody else was junk, you know, and then we got to tear our stuff up on each other. And I mean, it's fun, but it's, you know, I want to run against some new people. You know, I'm tired of running against all the same people around home.
I fell behind a little bit on the.
Derbying's so competitive around home. You know, it used to be you'd go to a derby and you'd have 30 cars there. Well, you'd have 10 of them that were knock the windows out and you know, go that weren't very competitive. But you go to a derby locally around home, there's no junk. There is no junk that shows up to any of our derbies anymore.
Sure. I think there's more places that are able to say that too.
See, the funny thing at Waterloo over the years, sorry, Jeff Buell, is that even the guys that, you know, didn't put a lot of time into them, they showed up, and they would drive just as hard as the guys that put a bunch of time and a bunch of energy and a bunch of money into their cars, and they'd be out there, you know, in a stock, whatever you want to pick, and they'd be delivering kill shots on, you know, very expensive old open, and it was just one of the things about the hometown. Guys drove hard. It was awesome.
Yep. That is for sure. I fell behind a little bit on the live chat. A couple different folks that were weighing in. David Soderbergh out there, Minnesota Wild Man. Wish I had some of the cars that I scrapped for stupid reasons. I think a lot of people did, and I didn't know this. Scott Kiefer checking in. Mike Rice ran a lot of Malibus. Brian, I didn't realize that.
Scott would know more than I. Like I said, I didn't meet Mike until towards the end of his career. You know, I've seen him run wagons and Impalas, but you know, I'm sure he did. And if Mike ran them, then he was pretty successful because he did a lot of winning. Yes,
he did. Scott also checked in saying that there's some issues with the independent shows. You know, Dundee Raceway, now Outlaw Speedway used to have independent derbies. They're gone. Utica Rome hasn't had a derby in a couple of years. Brewerton and Fulton still do compact shows periodically. Canandaigua does. Canasarega, their standalone shows are gone. So Scott's sort of been a spot where he's limited to county fairs, which last year were affected by COVID. And David Soderbergh also checking in, saying, bring the Tyler bumper to RDP, Tyler Reed, in addition to having a solid career and having a strong family name in the stock runs in Missouri. Also has quite the career and reputation in Jesse Meyer's Realistic Derby Project mod for Beam NG. How long before we see the flip bumper in that for you, Tyler?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, Jesse's been talking to me a lot about, putting a metric in the game, and I actually feel like I let a lot of people down because I sold all my metric stuff, and
oh no,
I'm gonna run some Fords actually, and my dad's been trying to get me to run Fords for a long time because that's kind of been his deal. I mean, he was forced basically into running Fords. If he wanted to keep derbying around here in the early 2000s, everything went to an 80 and newer rule set.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad went from running old iron GMs everywhere he went to, I've got to, run Fords. Or, well, I shouldn't say that. The first year that it went to 80 and newer, he ran some metric GMs.
Mm.
And then after that, it's been Fords, I think, especially within the last, I'd say the last 15 years, he's probably only ran 2 to 3 cars that weren't Fords in that time.
Wow.
Tyler, what's your dad think of the heavier builds that he sees out there nowadays? Like, some of the quote unquote semi-weld or even some of the harder builds. What's he think of those cars now?
I mean, he has built some pretty hard cars, back in the day, but the cradles, and he's not into spending the money, on a full ski cradle and full trans brace and these big 14-bolt rear ends, I mean, he likes going to watch, we finally got him to go out to Blizzard Bash last fall. He likes to watch it, but I mean, he's getting older. He's been doing this since 1988, I mean, I don't think you'd catch him in a car like that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just, I when I meet guys and talk to them, and if they mention their dad, I just like to get the opinion of the generation that came before. You know what I mean? I've talked with Toby highly about it, and Bobby Whitaker, and some different guys that have kind of got into it with their dad, and to see what their what dad thinks about today's derby. Me personally, my dad's all about racing, so he deals with derby, and is kind of how we put it. But it's always neat to hear what the old generation thinks about the new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he would be just as capable in a car built like that as he is in stock cars, but he's never going to spend that kind of money, and I'm not either. I have no interest in going and buying a ski cradle and all these protectors and stuff. That does not interest me at all. I like it when stuff bends. I don't want to run that hard stuff.
Sure.
I've never had an interest in it. Even when I first started, that was never on my radar. The hardest builds that I think I've ever done were hump plates, weld some frame seams, a big cage. I've never ran anything that's been crazy, and that's probably why I've had success with metrics, because I've not ever ran anything that's been, stupid hard. Maybe the hardest thing I ran was Sturgis. We ran Sturgis indoor a couple years ago. That's probably the hardest class I've ran.
You going back there this weekend?
No, we don't go out there too often. We went out there to watch once, and then we went out and ran. We do try to go to Evansville. Evansville's only about 3.5 hours for us, maybe a little less than that. So we do try to go to Evansville when Brandon has shows there, but
sure,
we don't really go to Sturgis too much.
Let's see. Guy Raymond, he junked a lot of 72 to 78 caddies 20 years ago, and everybody said that they were junk. Yeah, I mean, they were throwaway cars back then. There wasn't anything anybody was really messing with. Now they're sort of the go-to. Everybody wants to get their hands on those. Hot Springs Havoc in Arkansas, we were there when it was Razorback Rumble years ago. back when it was a Derby Icons show. It was fun when it was there. It's one of the best facilities to go to with that open air, but still enclosed and protected from the elements. It's really cool there. So Hot Springs, it's generally a pretty good show. And I think Hot Springs, if I'm not mistaken, I think Hot Springs was on the Unified Points Series last year. I think it was. I can't remember for certain, but I believe it was. The RDP thing, you ended up winning the online version of Blizzard Bash, correct?
Not Blizzard Bash, no. We won one of the Big Dog team shows.
Yes.
I think it was Winter Warzone.
That was the Warzone team
what they
show,
called
right?
it, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm had those flip flopped. That's it's pretty fascinating the way that game has evolved just from the first conversations that we had with Lee Sager, Prodigy Gaming, and Jesse back in March when we got into quarantine. It was just a little bit after we got back from Topeka that everything got shut down up here, and that was the beginning of my experience with the RDP mod and the game. Are you doing any testing for your Fords in the video game realm?
Yeah, I've been testing for Jesse for quite a long time. I wouldn't say that I'm really going to take anything from RDP to build, actual Fords. But I've been alongside Dad for, so many of them that he's built that I don't think building them will be an issue.
Is there? I mean,
maybe adjusted driving style might be a little different. I'm actually going to have some back end to use now, so that might take me a couple derbies to get used to that.
The joking aside about trying to pull something from the video game and put it to real life, it's not unheard of with the iRacing and the amount of practice seat time and stuff that people have used to get acclimated to sprint cars, to get acclimated to late models NASCAR. Brian can attest to that actually being a thing for those of you in the Derby world that don't dive into iRacing or other oval track types of motorsports. But on the flip side, the way that the cars now in the game, taking real world and going into the game now, the way that you can tune it and the way that you set up a car in the real world and doing that with a bubble or doing that with a box Ford or doing that with some of the old iron offerings that are out there, as a builder yourself, is there something to be said for how accurate this game has become?
Absolutely. And that's, when I'm building, and that's the problem. A lot of guys are not very serious with the RDP thing, and I get that, but their car stance, the way you drive it, the tire setups, the gearing. I see people all the time on the Beam page that are complaining because they're overheating these engines in this game all the time, and I'm like, it's gearing.
Right.
I mean, all you have to do is change a little bit of gearing here, adjust the tire size there. I really feel like derbying in real life helps you with that game. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. This game is I had a conversation. I can't even remember who it was. Spartan James McLean is in the live chat, and he just wanted to point out that he was the first loser in Warzone to you guys coming through the at Warzone. Just wanted to point that out, I guess. James, as it turns out, and I don't know how we didn't know this before that. James and I crossed paths through the game, and it turns out he lives just a couple blocks from my house in Waterloo. So that was kind of fun. He had to have a bunch of drilling done on his teeth, so I hope his mouth has come back to life. Otherwise, he's probably drooling all over himself as he types and all over his keyboard.
That's a pleasant thought.
David Soderbergh, in 1990, he had 5 Imperials in his heat, and he had a 2-door 74 LTD, and he was a little terrified. Can't blame you there. In terms of bringing the stuff from the real world and plugging it into the game and learning how to drive and stuff, this game is not Test Drive Eve of Destruction. And Pops, Marty Sager explained that to me before. My experience of Demolition Derby games was aux power and Test Drive Eve of Destruction, where you got on the throttle and you hammered down on it, and eventually you got to a point where you unlocked the hearse, or you unlocked the limo, or you unlocked the Durand, and that was the top car, and you were going to be in good shape. There wasn't any tunability or anything. A couple of friends of mine that have gotten into this game are like, well, what's the hot setup? What's the car that I really need to get? And it's like, man, you got to figure out what works for you, because what works for me isn't going to be the same as what works for Brian, and what works for Brian isn't necessarily what's going to work for you. And there was this big tumult there for a while where people were getting car files sent in for events and then giving them to their buddies, but you're not going to beat me with my car, just like I'm not going to beat you with your car. And that's one of the things that I like so much about this game is it is very, very focused on fine-tuning to your style.
Now, Chris, I mean, let's be honest. When you're a driver, the talent you are, you're going to win in anything you get in. I know you're a humble guy, but let's be honest.
That's not true. That's not true.
Yeah, it's neat. It's cool. Like I said, hopefully I can get into it a little bit and do some derby. And I just haven't had a lot of ambition. I got to get after it and start doing some of that stuff. And there's a couple ideas I want to try. So maybe I can get a little tutelage from the great Chris Marquardt.
I will send all my messages to Tyler Reed.
That's cool.
You running anywhere this weekend?
No, not really. I guess we got a career show coming up sometime soon. I ran a show for Vito this past weekend.
How'd it go?
So that went pretty decent. I won the Mad Dog. Mad Dog paid the same as it did to win, so.
It's not a bad deal right there.
No, that's my only complaint with the game is, and it's not even with the game, it's with myself, is I'm too competitive. Like, right. I want to win, especially when there's money involved. And, I mean, that's like that team show we all ran, Scooter's show that your team won. I got scraped and a wheel fell off, and it's like, man, had that wheel not fell off, or you get stuck, and it's like, I feel like I can't control my own fate with it sometimes, and that bothers me.
I, at risk of tempting bad fate, I don't mind that part of the game, because I've seen plenty of derbies where where your heart just drops out of your chest because you're like, oh God, he just got hung up. Made a bad choice and got stuck on a dead car. Or it's the Bobby Brockway has a story where a $6 piece of garden hose would have helped him win Metal Mayhem when he had his Riviera. If it would have sleeved his fuel line, it wouldn't have rubbed through where he cut out his transmission hole, and it wouldn't have gotten a hole, and he probably would have won it. So,
I watched my dad get stuck on his own tire.
See, like that part of the game, I know it's a frustrating thing, and especially when you're competitive like that and you want to win it, it's one of those things you got to be aware of, because there's always that chance. And I understand what you're saying, because you don't want to get stuck to another car that's still running and moving. That happened to me on Friday night over at Spartan's show. I ended up getting third, and my front bumper was stuck in the tailgate of Roger McClaskey's wagon, and that's where it was going to stay no matter what happened. But
well, it's one thing to put myself in a bad spot and ruin it for myself. But, like we ran some of them team derbies, and, I just feel like your whole team depends on you, and we've ran some where another teammate has put us in a bad spot, or you get stuck to your own teammate, or your teammate's pushing a car from the other team, and he pushes that car right into you, and then you're stuck right there, and it's not even, if it's my fault, that's one thing, I'll handle that, but when it's somebody else's fault, I have such a problem accepting that.
Because you're a competitive guy. There's Alliance is running the show on Friday. I'm going to be doing the play-by-play on that one, and then we'll be busy Sunday night with the Career League show.
I'd love to run that show Friday, but with me working the hours that I do, I normally work like noon to 8, so I'm never home in the evenings. It's Vito's always hosting fun runs throughout the week, and I usually get in for maybe the tail end of them, but I just don't have the time.
Vito just messaged. He said RDP isn't just another video game. You actually need to spend time and effort into your builds. Tyler taught me a lot when we were teammates for Blizzard Brash. Speaking of teammates, Tyler, you made a reference to that wheel falling off in Scooter's show, and friend of friend, I did not shed a tear when a wheel fell off your car.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
You might even take a shot at that wheel, huh, Chris?
I'll stay right away from the wheel. I don't want any part of that. I don't want to get stuck in a wheel.
That's like I felt so bad, in Vito's show the other night. Like Jesse and I ran a couple team shows with Dalton Rood and Trevor Mulder, and Trevor was just kind of in the way the other night when I was running Vito's show, and I hit him like 3 or 4 times, and I haven't talked to him since, so I hope he's not mad at me. But it's derbying,
Mm-hmm. Frankie Guy just threw us a thumbs up. Frankie Guy, Hardcore Demolition Derby, getting behind Crash Course Nationals 2 coming up in June, committing some support as one of the title sponsors on that show. The information coming together on that, the rule book and competitor's guide has been completed. That'll be dropping in the next couple of days, and registration is going to be opening the second week of February, so people are going to be able to jump in on that. Looking forward to getting our chance to do another show along those lines, so that's hanging out there. And like I said, Brian, you're going to have to figure out your entries this time.
No problem. Just tell me how much money I got to send you, and I'll do it.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Tyler, is there anything that we didn't hit on? Anything that you wanted to get to?
Oh, nothing really. I really didn't know exactly what you had in mind about. I was kind of coming into it blindly, so.
Is there anybody that you want to make mention of in terms of anybody you want to make mention of in terms of helping you get to the track, sponsors, stuff like that?
Well, my wife, she owns a photography business. She's always my number one sponsor. Anytime I need anything, she's there. My dad, of course, I still build at his shop, use a lot of his tools. He's got a big trailer, so a lot of times he hauls, both of our cars. When my brother is in the Army, he's actually stationed in Korea right now. So
oh, wow.
when my brother's home, he typically hauls my brother's stuff. But and I got a few friends that come around quite a bit. They're not really derby guys. Friends from high school that still give me a hand anytime I need it. A lot of my other friends that are derby related are typically building cars for the same shows, so right. I don't really get help from them as much as I used to. My buddy Chris used to build at the shop. He's since started building at his own house. He's got 3 girls and a wife, and he decided to start building cars at his house. So don't blame him one bit.
Sure.
And other than that, I got one buddy that builds at the house, my buddy Zach, and he's usually there anytime I need anything, You guys know it takes an army to do this stuff sometimes.
It sure does. Well, when you talk to your brother, tell him thank you for his service. We certainly do appreciate that. And in terms of coming on and being prepared for the show, this is just a bunch of people standing around talking about Derby. No different than what happened in the pits anyplace else. We didn't come in.
No, I could do it all night. We could stay here all night, and I could tell stories, but some people will get bored after a while, I'm sure.
Well, it's been a good show. I was really happy. The numbers stayed up pretty well tonight, so that was good. I know Brian's kind of doing double duty right now. He's got his football meeting, and we got to get the studio turned over because I think they got a program coming in at 9:00 tonight as well. So we're probably gonna call it quits here. We're at an hour and a half mark now. Tyler, man, I appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about your hometown area and your family and your Derby life. Sure do appreciate Mark Elliott coming and giving us a little peek at the hand for the 2021 Unified Point Series and of course, sharing some of your thoughts on the RDP mod. I thoroughly enjoy it and certainly look forward to playing more with it this weekend.
Absolutely.
Tyler, man, we appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
We'll see you now.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I got to jump off quick. I got to get to my football meeting.
Yep.
Real quick before I go, I'd just like to thank everybody that's wished me happy birthdays. A bunch of people on Facebook, some people on here. tough birthday today. So
I'm sure.
I just want you guys to know that I helped a lot, and I'll talk to you next week, guys. Have a good one.
Very good. Thanks. There goes Brian. He's got to get to his meeting. One final thought. I haven't seen any thumbs up or messages from Ed this weekend. Ed got a little bit of his voice back at Brewster down in Midlothian, Virginia, JMW Motorsports, and I had the grand fortune on Friday of getting to talk with him a little bit, and he sounded good. Obviously, a long road ahead of him. He is still making plans, and I just love it. That's a guy that you cannot keep down no matter what. So keep fighting the good fight, Ed. We're thinking of you. Love you. Wish you the best. Look forward to talking with you again soon. And Kool-Aid, I don't know how I missed this. Kool-Aid, David LeJewitt had his mom pass, and I didn't realize that had happened. So our thoughts out to Kool-Aid and having lost his mom. And again, anybody who's lost anybody in the last 2 weeks, it's been certainly a challenge. So we're thinking of all of you. Good luck, everybody, running this weekend at Redneck Rumble. Certainly looking forward to it. I got some meetings that I got to get to tonight with James and some of the folks over at Alliance Motorsports. There's a derby coming up Saturday that we got to see if we can get some teams together for. It's going to be a good weekend for everybody, whether you're in person at derbies or you're playing the RDP mod online. We certainly do appreciate it. If you want any more information about Crash Course, just punch it into Google. If you want any more information about the RDP mod, look up Realistic Derby Project Patreon on Google. That'll send you there. Make sure you hit that follow, like, and subscribe buttons and share it to a friend. Thanks a lot so much for being part of episode number 340. That number out there just for Spartan. We'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot.
Crash Course Live is presented by
Smash It Demolition Derby, who host Bash for Cash, Blizzard Bash, and Capital City Carnage. Online at smashitderby.com. And Stirring Dirt Racing, host of May Mania's team show at the Golden Spike Arena in Ogden, Utah. Online at stirringdirtracing.com.
Reckless Abandon Derby Apparel and Derby Inc. Magazine. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York.